When you find yourself in a complicated emotional situation, silence can be a powerful ally. Sometimes the best response is not the one you imagine. Instead of explaining your emotions or justifying your actions, you can choose to remain silent. This choice has a profound effect on the people around you, especially those who tend to take your time for granted. When you withdraw from the conversation, something changes. The absence of words forces the other person to confront their own actions. They start to question what they did, how it impacted you, and more importantly, how their actions may have contributed to the distance between you. Silence brings an unexpected clarity, where the other person is compelled to look within. It is common in exhausting relationships to have a dynamic of misunderstandings and false promises. You may have felt compelled to speak repeatedly, trying to change the other person's perception. But what if you decided not to say anything anymore? What would happen if, instead of explaining, you simply allowed yourself to feel and observe? This space might be the key for the truth to reveal itself. Reflection becomes necessary when communication is interrupted. The person who previously wasn't paying attention now has a moment to ponder. They may feel uneasy, grappling with guilt or confusion. This discomfort is part of the self-assessment process. In this scenario, you don't need to do anything other than exist in your truth. What you feel is real and valid. Do not feel guilty for taking a step back. You are not abandoning the situation. You are actually protecting yourself. Your emotions matter. By not explaining yourself, you create space for the other person to realize the consequences of their actions. This is a form of empowerment that few recognize. When you decide to remain silent, you are also communicating a powerful message. You value yourself. This can make the other person reconsider their behavior. They might start to realize that their words and actions have an impact, not just on you, but on the relationship as a whole. Silence is a tool that allows them to face a reality they might have ignored. If you have gotten this far, this is a sign that it's time to reflect on what truly matters in your relationships. Silence can be the beginning of a new dynamic where the truth emerges. You deserve relationships that respect your essence. This is the path for you to live authentically. Silence, in its essence, is a powerful tool. When you choose not to speak in the midst of an emotionally complicated situation, you create a space that can be both uncomfortable and revealing. This pause in communication can be the necessary invitation for the other person to start reflecting on their actions and behaviors. It is common that, in exhausting relationships, communication turns into a battleground. Words are spoken without thinking, and emotions intensify. In this scenario, silence becomes an alternative. By not getting involved in heated discussions, you avoid feeding a vicious cycle of hurt and resentment. Your decision to remain silent can be an act of self-care, a way to preserve your energy and maintain your inner peace. What happens when you withdraw from the conversation is that the other person is forced to face reality. Without your words to shape the narrative, they start to realize that their actions have consequences. This absence of dialogue may provoke a discomfort that leads to reflection. The person might ask themselves, "What did I do that made her distance herself?" This doubt is the first step to awareness. This process of self-evaluation is not easy. The discomfort that arises from silence can generate anxiety, but it is in that space where transformation begins. You don't need to feel guilty for no longer wanting to explain or justify your pain. Often, words become a trap that prevents true understanding. By choosing silence, you allow the other person to face their own emotions without the distractions of defense. When verbal communication ceases, the dynamic of the relationship changes. Silence interrupts the flow of misunderstandings and paves the way for a new type of interaction. The other person may start to see the relationship in a new light. This moment of introspection can be the catalyst for them to recognize their flaws and how those flaws have affected you. The truth becomes clearer when words are not present to confuse. This process can take time. The other person may initially react with indifference or even anger. They might not understand why you chose to be silent. However, this resistance is part of the growth process. It is necessary to give space for reality to settle in. Discomfort is a sign that something needs to be addressed, and you don't need to be the voice that brings it to light. Your choice of not speaking can be an act of self-love. It means you are prioritizing your emotional health and well-being. Instead of feeling obligated to justify yourself, you are affirming that your emotions are valid and deserve to be respected. This is a powerful message that, although it may not be well received immediately, has the potential to change the dynamic of the relationship. Additionally, silence can encourage the other person to seek solutions. Without your explanations, they may feel motivated to ask questions, to delve into their own emotions. This can open doors for more meaningful conversations in the future. However, it is crucial that you don't feel pressured to respond immediately. Time is your ally in this process. It is important to remember that silence is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. By choosing not to engage in unproductive discussions, you are demonstrating control over your emotions. You are not a hostage to a cycle of arguments that lead nowhere. Instead, you are creating a space for genuine growth, both for yourself and for the other person. Sometimes silence can be misinterpreted. The other person may think you are distancing yourself or becoming detached, but that is not your intention. What you desire is to create a moment of clarity where both can reflect on what is truly happening. This time apart might be what you both need to better understand your own needs and desires. When you do not explain yourself, you are also allowing yourself to feel. Often in a relationship, emotions are compressed in an effort to avoid conflicts. This can lead to a buildup of resentments that become unsustainable. Silence is the opportunity to release that pressure. Allow yourself to feel the pain, the sadness, or the confusion. These emotions are valid and are part of the healing process. The truth is that you have the right to protect yourself. If something is not right, if you feel your needs are not being met, silence can be the most honest way to deal with the situation. By stepping away from the conversation, you are not only safeguarding yourself, but also giving the other person the opportunity to reconsider their actions. This is the true essence of self-care. In the end, silence is an invitation to reflection. It is a pause that can lead to a new understanding, both yours and the other person's. You deserve relationships that respect your essence and value honest and open communication. Do not be afraid to use silence as a tool to create the emotional life you want and deserve. When you decide to opt for silence in a complicated emotional situation, it does not mean that you are giving up. In fact, it is an act of empowerment. By withdrawing verbally, you are setting a clear boundary about what is acceptable and what is not. This action can be difficult, but it is an essential step to reaffirm your value and your needs. Silence creates a pause that can be interpreted in various ways. For you, it may be a moment of self-care. For the other person, it may be an opportunity for reflection. By not engaging in heated discussions, you avoid the escalation of conflicts that often result in deep hurt. This choice to remain silent is a way to protect your energy. When you stay silent, you open space for the other person to examine their own actions. This can lead to an awareness that would not occur in the midst of an emotionally charged conversation. Silence, therefore, is a tool that promotes necessary self-evaluation. The other person may wonder, why isn't she talking? This doubt can be the first step toward change. Moreover, silence can act as a mirror. When you withdraw from the conversation, the person around you may begin to notice the impact of their words and actions. Without your reactions, they are forced to confront the reality of what has happened. This is an opportunity for them to recognize their faults and how they have affected you. It is important to remember that this process of reflection can be uncomfortable. The other person may initially react with resistance, anger, or indifference. This is not a sign that you are wrong, but rather that change generates discomfort. Personal growth often occurs amidst pain, and this discomfort is an indication that something needs to be addressed. You do not need to rush this process. Time is a powerful ally. Allow the other person to have the space to process their emotions. Meanwhile, you can focus on your own healing. Silence allows you to connect with your emotions, validating them without the need to express them verbally. By not justifying yourself, you are showing that your emotions have weight. It's not a battle for attention, but a genuine acknowledgement of what you feel. This can be a call for the other person to change their approach to you. When they realize that their actions have consequences, they may feel motivated to act differently. This change in dynamics can be beneficial for both of you. When you allow yourself to feel and do not feel obligated to explain yourself, it creates space for more meaningful dialogue in the future. Silence is an invitation for the other person to seek to understand their own motivations and attitudes. This can open doors to deeper and more authentic conversations that might otherwise be lost amid superficial discussions. Furthermore, the act of being silent can redefine the relationship. The other person may begin to see you as someone who values your emotions, and not just as someone who is always available to respond. This new perception can change how they behave towards you and the overall dynamic of the relationship. When you withdraw from the conversation, you are also creating a pattern that can be followed. This conscious choice not to engage in unproductive discussions can inspire the other person to adopt a more respectful and sensitive approach. Silence, therefore, is not just a self-care tool for you, but also an opportunity for transformation in the relationship. In this scenario, it is essential that you remain firm in your decision to stay silent. Do not give in to the pressure to justify or explain yourself. This is part of your process of self-valuation. You have the right to be heard and, at the same time, to choose not to engage in conversations that bring no benefit. It is essential that you recognize your strength when choosing silence. This choice is an act of self-love, a recognition of what you deserve in your relationships. Silence is a sign that you are prioritizing your emotional health, and that is valid. If you notice that the other person is starting to question their actions, this is a positive sign. It might indicate that they are becoming more aware of their attitudes and how they impact you. This self-assessment can lead to significant personal growth. Silence should not be seen as an end, but as a new beginning. It is an opportunity to reevaluate the relationship and the needs of each person. Sometimes, it is necessary to take a step back so that both can advance in a healthier and more respectful manner. When you allow yourself to feel and do not feel obliged to explain your emotions, you are creating a space for the other person to do the same. This exchange of experiences can lead to greater understanding and empathy. In this sense, silence transforms into a catalyst for genuine connection. Finally, remember that silence is an act of courage. By remaining silent amidst emotional confusion, you are positioning yourself in a firm and conscious manner. This attitude might not be immediately understood, but over time, it can result in a positive transformation in the relationship. You deserve to be valued and heard. By using silence as a tool, you are allowing yourself to live authentically and truthfully. This choice might be what you and the other person need to build a healthier relationship, based on mutual respect and honest communication. When faced with the need to remain silent, it is vital to understand that this choice is not a sign of weakness, but a decisive step toward your emotional growth. It demonstrates that you are aware of your emotions and willing to protect your personal space. By taking this stance, you are positioning yourself as someone who values your inner peace. The impact of this on the other person can be significant. Without your ready responses, they may begin to reflect on the role they play in the dynamics of the relationship. This introspection can lead to a genuine acknowledgement of their flaws and a desire for change, something that often gets lost amid constant communication. This process of reflection does not happen instantly. The other person may initially react defensively or even feel confused. However, this resistance is part of the growth. It is important to have patience and allow them to process their feelings. The silence you choose to maintain is the necessary space for this self-evaluation to occur. Meanwhile, you should focus on your own journey. Use this time to connect with your emotions, understand your needs, and strengthen your self-esteem. This self-exploration can be liberating and essential for your emotional health. You don't need to feel guilty for prioritizing your well-being. This is a healthy practice that everyone should adopt. If the other person feels uncomfortable with your choice to remain silent, it may be a sign that they really need to confront their own attitudes. The discomfort that arises can be the catalyst for more honest and deep conversations in the future. Sometimes what seems like distancing can actually be an invitation to change. It is essential that you establish clear boundaries. By withdrawing from unproductive discussions, you are asserting that you will not tolerate behaviors that do not respect your essence. This stance not only reinforces your value, but can also inspire the other person to adopt a more respectful and conscious approach towards you. Silence can also pave the way for new forms of communication. When you do not engage in heated discussions, it creates a space for both of you to explore your emotions in a healthier manner. This change of approach can lead to more meaningful and less reactive interactions. Dialogue becomes more productive when both parties are willing to listen and reflect. Additionally, your silence may encourage the other person to open up. When you allow yourself not to respond, you give them the opportunity to express their own insecurities and concerns. This can result in a deeper connection, where both feel valued and understood. Shared vulnerability can transform the dynamics of the relationship. Finally, remember that silence is a powerful tool of self-assertion. By choosing not to explain yourself, you are demonstrating that your emotions are valid and worthy of respect. You are not only protecting yourself, you are also showing the other person that it is possible to have a relationship based on honesty and empathy. This choice can be the first step towards a healthier and more balanced future for both of you. Before you leave, do two things now. Take a deep breath and hold on to what touched your heart today. And if it makes sense, share this story with someone who also needs to hear it.